Subscribe to the channel and hear even more exciting stories. AITA for revealing my husband's affair to the partner of the other woman? Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be that person posting here, but life has a way of humbling you. Huh? For the record, I, 33F, have been married to my husband, Mark, 35M, for almost 8 years. If you asked anyone who knows us, they'd probably call us solid. We have a cute little house, a slightly neurotic golden retriever, and a fridge plastered with postcards from places we swore we'd visit together. On paper, it's all very wholesome, maybe even a little boring. I'd always prided myself on how much we trusted each other. No phone snooping, no weird jealousy, just the kind of comfort you get from building a life with someone you honestly believe has your back. Sure, we had our arguments. He leaves coffee mugs everywhere. I have the world's loudest sneeze, but nothing ever felt like a big deal. I used to roll my eyes at friends who did surprise phone checks or track their spouses on Find My iPhone. That stuff was for couples with real issues, right? In hindsight, there were little red flags. I just painted them green, I guess. The late nights at work I brushed off as dedication. The random texts he'd get that made him suddenly leave the room. His new obsession with his appearance. Side note, no one actually needs 3 types of beard oil, Mark. But you learn to tune those things out because believing the best is just easier. Besides, I told myself, he's not that kind of guy. Looking back now, I don't know if I was naive or just really wanted to trust the person I married. Maybe a bit of both. I thought we were the exception, you know? The ones who actually make it. Turns out, life loves irony. The day everything changed was stupidly ordinary. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking cold coffee and pretending to work, while Mark rushed around getting ready for an important client meeting. He left his phone charging in the hallway, which was nothing new. He's always losing it, or asking me to call it, because he can't find where he put it. Spoiler. It's usually in his coat pocket. Then it buzzed. Normally, I wouldn't even glance at his screen, but something about the notification caught my eye. It was a preview of a message, just a few words, but it was enough. Last night was amazing, can't stop thinking about you. Followed by a winky face. From a name I didn't recognize. I stared at the phone for a solid minute, my brain scrambling for a logical explanation. Old friend. Inside joke. An ad for a hotel, maybe? I actually laughed a little at that one, like my mind was doing mental gymnastics to keep my reality intact. I didn't want to be that person, the one who snoops, who assumes the worst. But my hands were shaking, and something in my gut just knew. I didn't open the phone. Instead, I sat there, heart pounding, convincing myself that maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe there was an explanation. But the look on Mark's face when he came back in the room, saw me near his phone, and went pale, wasn't reassuring. He mumbled something about being late, snatched his phone, and left without a goodbye. The second the door closed, my whole world felt like it had tilted sideways. I wanted to cry, to scream, to laugh at how surreal it all was. But mostly, I just sat there, hugging myself, wondering if I'd just imagined everything. Spoiler, I hadn't. For the first few hours after Mark left, I just froze. My brain wouldn't compute it. I wandered the house in a daze, refolding laundry that was already folded, petting the dog until he looked at me like, please, ma'am, that's enough. 1,000 scenarios played out in my mind, each more dramatic than the last. I kept telling myself, don't overreact. Don't turn a weird message into a disaster. But the pit in my stomach just kept growing, heavy and cold. I wanted to call my best friend, but what would I even say? Hey, so my husband might be cheating, or maybe he's just gotten really creative with inside jokes? It sounded insane. Mostly, I was angry. At him, at myself, at the universe for making me the kind of person who had to question everything now. I thought about marching straight to his office and demanding answers, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Every time I picked up my phone to call him, my hand started to shake so badly I had to put it down. Part of me wanted to just ignore it all. Sweep it under the rug, forget the message, pretend nothing happened. I could almost see a version of my life where I just let it slide. But another part of me, some stubborn, angry little voice deep inside, kept whispering, don't you dare. Don't let this become your normal. I stayed up way too late that night, replaying every moment of our marriage in my mind. Suddenly, every late night, every vague answer, every work trip felt suspicious. Was I blind? or just too trusting for my own good? By the time the sun came up, I knew I couldn't just let this go. I needed to know the truth, even if it hurt. Once I accepted that I couldn't just let this go, a weird sort of numb determination took over. Maybe it was adrenaline, maybe it was self-preservation, but I switched into detective mode, quiet, careful, watching everything. I started paying attention in a way I hadn't in years. First, I scrolled through our shared credit card statements. Why hadn't I noticed those random charges before? Lunches at restaurants I'd never heard of, Uber rides that ended nowhere near his office, late-night flower deliveries. There was a pattern, but I'd been too trusting or too distracted to see it. I felt sick. I tried to remember that name from the text notification. It stuck in my head, so I did what any reasonable person in 2025 does. I went full social media stalker. Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. Eventually, I found her. A woman in marketing, not unattractive in that perfectly curated way, a smile that looked rehearsed. Married, as far as her profile told me. And there, buried in a group shot from an office party, was Mark, arms slung a little too comfortably around her shoulders. God, I wanted to throw my laptop out the window. I didn't want to confide in anyone yet. I wasn't ready to make this real by saying it out loud. But I took screenshots, saved emails, and quietly gathered every scrap of evidence I could find, as if I were building a case for a trial I never asked for. I started watching Mark, too. How his phone never left his side, how he'd leave the room to answer calls, how he came home smelling like a cologne I didn't recognize. Each new discovery hurt, but at least it was the truth. At least I wasn't crazy. I still didn't know what I was going to do with it all. But I knew I needed to have the whole story before I confronted anyone. I owed myself at least that much. Once I had all the proof, you'd think I'd be ready to blow everything up. Instead, I just felt paralyzed. I spent days walking around in a fog, replaying every possible scenario in my head. Should I confront Mark? Should I call her? Should I just pack a bag and leave without a word? But what kept gnawing at me was the face of the man on her Instagram. Her husband, I assumed. Smiling, holding her close, completely oblivious. Every time I thought about the betrayal happening behind his back, my stomach twisted. Wasn't he just like me? Trusting, living his life, not knowing the ground was about to vanish beneath him? That's when the real moral gymnastics began. Did I have the right to interfere in someone else's marriage? What if telling him ruined his life? What if he blamed me? Or worse, didn't believe me? Was it kinder to stay silent? Or was it cruel to let him keep living a lie? I went down a rabbit hole of Reddit threads, advice columns, even late-night Google searches. Should you tell someone their spouse is cheating? The answers were all over the place. Some said it was a kindness, others called it meddling. I tried to imagine what I would want if the roles were reversed. Honestly, I'd want to know, even if it shattered me. Because the not knowing, the doubting, is a kind of torture all its own. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I kept picturing his face if he ever found out and realized I'd known and said nothing. And still, there was a part of me that wondered, am I doing this for him or for revenge? Was I trying to protect someone or just drag them down into my misery? I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew a choice was coming, and whatever I decided, there was no going back. The actual moment I decided to tell him came almost by accident. I was staring at her Instagram, again, when she posted a happy anniversary story tagging her husband. His profile was public. I clicked, half out of morbid curiosity, and saw a man who looked so genuinely happy that it broke something in me. I couldn't stand the idea of him being in the dark, of the two of us, unknowing spouses, living parallel lives. My hands were shaking as I typed and deleted about 20 different messages. In the end, I kept it simple. I sent him a direct message. Hi, I know this is strange, but I think we need to talk about something important. It concerns your wife and my husband. I'm sorry. I attached one screenshot, nothing graphic, just enough to show it wasn't a prank. The wait for his response was agonizing. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might actually pass out. After an hour, I finally got a reply. He asked if we could talk on the phone. That call was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. He was quiet at first, then angry. Not at me, but at the universe. He asked careful questions, voice breaking, trying to hold himself together. I told him everything I knew, shared the evidence I collected. There were long silences where neither of us knew what to say. I could hear him breathing, could feel his pain through the line. At the end, he thanked me. Not dramatically, just quietly, like someone who'd finally had a puzzle piece snap into place. We promised to keep each other updated if we learned anything new. I hung up and just sat there, numb and shaking, unsure if I'd just done the right thing or made everything 1,000 times worse. After the call, everything happened in a blur. The other woman's husband confronted her. Apparently, she broke down and admitted to everything. He messaged me later that night, just 2 words. You were right. I could feel the weight in those words, the exhaustion, the grief. I sent back, I'm so sorry. It felt hopelessly inadequate. Mark came home late, as usual, and for once, I didn't wait up pretending to sleep. I met him at the door, and before I could say anything, he saw my face and just stopped. I told him what I knew. I told him I'd spoken to her husband. I wish I could say it all came out in a dramatic, empowered monologue, but really, my voice was shaking and my hands wouldn't keep still. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just sat down on the stairs and put his head in his hands. I think, in that moment, the reality finally hit us both. The years, the memories, the house we built, all of it suddenly seemed so fragile. For the next few days, our home felt like a war zone in the quietest, loneliest way. We moved around each other like ghosts, barely speaking. I got a couple of texts from mutual friends. Are you okay? And ignored them. Part of me wanted to spill everything, but another part couldn't stand the idea of being pitted or judged. My family was divided. My sister called and immediately offered to drive over and help me burn all his stuff. My mother just said, "Try to forgive, dear, everyone makes mistakes." Thanks, Mom. Honestly, it felt like my world had split down the middle. There was the before me, and now this new version. Raw, angry, uncertain, but also, in a strange way, lighter. The truth was out. The secrets were over. In the days that followed, the silence in our house grew loud. It's amazing how grief can be so physical. Like I could feel it in my bones, the weight of everything we'd lost, or maybe never really had. Mark tried to talk, a couple of times. He apologized, said he never meant for any of this to happen, that it was a mistake. I laughed, an ugly, bitter sound I barely recognized as my own. A mistake is burning toast or forgetting an anniversary. This was a choice, over and over. I'd thought for so long that if something like this ever happened, I'd know exactly what to do. In reality, I was all over the place. One minute I was furiously packing his things into garbage bags. The next I was sobbing into our dog's fur, convinced my life was ending. I felt grief, yes, but also shame. How did I not see it? Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? I couldn't stop checking my phone, half expecting some apology that would fix everything, half dreading more ugly truths coming to light. The other woman's husband and I exchanged a few more messages, mostly logistical. Who would tell who what, whether we'd talk to lawyers, that sort of thing. For 2 strangers, we suddenly understood each other better than most people in our lives. I started to avoid places that reminded me of us. Our favorite bakery, the park where we used to walk the dog, even the stupid home goods store where we'd argued over what color towels to buy. Everything felt tainted, like there was an invisible line between my old life and this one. But underneath the pain, something new was growing, a kind of quiet clarity. I knew I couldn't live with more secrets. I didn't want to. Whatever happened next, I wanted it to be honest. Eventually, numbness gave way to action. I made a list, literally, on a pad of paper, of what needed to happen next. Practical things at first. See a lawyer, cancel joint credit cards, tell my boss, because apparently sobbing in the break room twice in 1 week is concerning. Each step felt impossible before I did it, then almost anticlimactic after. Turns out, moving forward is a series of boring, necessary tasks that gradually chip away at the past. Mark asked if we could try therapy. For about 2 seconds, I actually considered it. Then I remembered the months of lying, the way he'd looked me in the eye and promised there was nothing wrong. I told him I was done. It was weirdly gentle, the way I said it, like telling someone you're out of milk. He cried, I didn't. That surprised me. I guess I'd already cried all my tears in the days before. The divorce process started, slow, paperwork heavy, not at all like the dramatic courtroom scenes on TV. My friends rallied around me. My sister brought wine and snacks and made me laugh so hard I almost felt normal. Even my mom, who'd once advised forgiveness, admitted that maybe sometimes people don't deserve a second chance. The other woman's husband and I didn't keep in touch. After a while, there wasn't much left to say, but I did notice he deleted all the photos of her from his social media, and I took some petty comfort in that tiny digital erasure. I started seeing a therapist, not for Mark, but for me. I realized I didn't want to just move on. I wanted to understand how I'd ignored the red flags, how I could trust myself again. For the first time in a long time, I started imagining a life that belonged to me, not us. Now that the dust has finally settled, I still have days when the past creeps up on me, when I wonder if I could have changed anything, or spot a couple laughing at a cafe and feel a pang of jealousy for what I thought I had. But mostly, I feel relief. There's a strange freedom in knowing the truth, even when it hurts. I'm rebuilding, piece by piece. Some days it's slow, but I like who I'm becoming. A person who listens to her gut, who refuses to settle for half-truths, who can laugh, eventually, at the chaos life throws her way. If you're reading this because you're living through something similar, here's my advice. Trust yourself. If something feels off, don't gaslight yourself into ignoring it. You're not crazy or paranoid for asking questions. Also, remember, someone else's betrayal isn't a reflection of your worth. It's not your job to fix another person's choices, and it's definitely not your burden to carry their secrets. As for whether you should tell the other betrayed partner, I don't regret it. He deserved to know, just like I did. Keeping someone in the dark to protect them is just another way of keeping them trapped. The truth is painful, but it's also the only foundation you can actually rebuild on. So, be gentle with yourself. Let yourself be angry, sad, numb, or even weirdly hopeful. You'll come out the other side. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find a version of yourself you like even more than the old one. Thanks for reading, Reddit. If nothing else, at least my story can be a cautionary tale for anyone ignoring their own red flags.